Hey there, welcome to our initial episode of Women with Good Chat. So I'm Amanda, this is my very good friend Pam, and we wanted to welcome you to our space and sort of provide some light on the premise of what the show is. And what we want to talk about today is how important friends are at this stage in life. And Pam, why don't you take it from here?
Well, I think, Amanda, this is our introductory topic because it really comes to the root of why you and I started talking about doing this show, which was we were finding at this point in our life with the things we were going through, and we've talked about those as being transitions. That's one of the things that we've kind of identified as being specific to this stage of our lives. And how much, when we were starting to feel ourselves go into that transition, it seemed like a very natural thing to look to our friends, our female friends in particular, and female friends our age for support through that, for direction through that. So I think it's a key part of what we're finding with our lives right now.
Yeah, absolutely. Because as you approach 60 and beyond, which is our demo, you are really going through some changes, career-wise, family-wise, what you want to do, broaching retirement, which is awesome and scary all at the same time. So speaking with good friends, your female friends, really does provide, as you were saying, support and interesting ideas as you figure out how everybody's approaching the stage.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things I'm noticing is that many of the people in my life are not necessarily at the same stage I'm at.
Right.
So, we will later on in the show and in our shows talk about evolution of relationship with partners. The fact that we seem to be at this age not always, I don't want to say on the same page as our partners, but our partners are often doing their own thing with their transitions, and it's not necessarily our things with our transitions. Our children, if we have them, are older. Our work colleagues are not, we aren't necessarily lurking to our work colleagues if we still have them for the same sort of ambitions and places. So we're really at a point where it's our friends and it's women our age that are experiencing the same thing. So some of those other supports or places we used to go to, I just haven't found are as valuable now as they once would have been.
Yeah, and that's a very good point. I know that, so we've both had careers. Pam's a lawyer and practiced law for many, many years, and I worked in finance and then moved on to culinary. But especially when I was in finance, my colleagues were a huge part of obviously my day-to-day life, my friend base, and my support system. I think a lot of people find that. And obviously you maintain some of those friendships when you leave those industries, but there's other friendships that you might have maintained along the way that I find now are a great resource and that I'm leaning on quite a bit. I don't know what you think.
I think absolutely. And I think because when you were in those workplaces, there was a context for that support too, right? You did talk about your personal life, you did talk about what you were doing, but most of the time you were talking about that within the context of your profession.
Yeah.
So that, I think, is also something that's a bit different at this point in life, which is, when I think about the transition from school to work to a family, partnering if you have ended up with an intimate partner, all those things. Those stages had within them a lot of definition just by the structure of those events, for most of us anyway, if we followed a more conventional path. So for many of us, this point in life is one of those first times when that road is not as clear. We have responsibilities, right? Most of us still have financial responsibilities, we've still got family responsibilities, but they aren't being shaped by those larger institutions, set of circumstances, path forward, right?
Yeah.
So those supports we had, the context they were in isn't there anymore. So I think that's part of the difficulty with these transitions, or the ambiguity with these transitions. I guess that's the word I'm thinking of, right?
No, and it is a little ambiguous, and it is a very interesting stage. And I think when you are able to share, and I find that at this point in our lives, and the friends that we have that are maybe a little bit younger, a little bit older, that there's a lot of honesty coming out right now,
Yes,
which
yeah.
I absolutely
Yes.
love.
Yes.
And I'm pretty upfront about how I feel about things, and my friends are not always appreciative of it, but I think that if you can be honest and really share things, which I'm really trying to push my friends to do now as well, is what does retirement look like? What does working maybe at this stage in life look like? What does parenting children that are adults themselves,
Yes,
and they may
big
or may
one.
not want our help,
Yep.
but what does that look like? And these are all things we're going to cover, and they're all really pressing in our lives right now.
They are pressing, and I think that aspect about honesty, because it's not an easy one,
Yeah.
right? Like, we have that stereotype of like that, older woman who just says whatever the hell she thinks. She's on the bus and she's making
My mother.
comments, right?
Yeah.
What that person looks like, why the hell is she wearing that? So there's that at one end. And then there's our younger selves, which were, certainly with me, you're self-conscious, you're watching what you're saying, you're feeling your way through. I feel like right now we're in the middle of that, as you say. We want the honesty because, frankly, there's days when I feel like I'm just too old not to be honest. Right? There's too much, right? I'm ready to go forward. Too experienced, and I just want to get to the root of what really matters. There's a sense that it's time for that. And so having people around you that you can do that with.
Yeah.
And that occasionally you say things which you're right, maybe that was a bit too much, maybe it wasn't, maybe that's oversharing, maybe it's not.
Yeah.
Having a group of people around you feel comfortable with that is absolutely essential, I feel, to my ability to go forward with that.
Absolutely. It's that vulnerability and that, obviously, that comfortable space. And touching on what you were saying, I know when I was my late 20s, when I got married, early 30s, I had my child, and just the whole group of people that I had around me at the time, which are very important. I'm still in touch with some of them today, but I wasn't as honest because I wanted my life to look perfect.
Yeah.
And things turned out fine, but it's just now, because there's so much unknown, I have the experience under my belt of dealing with things a certain way. I'm really open to tapping into other resources and being vulnerable and honest about how I'm feeling. And if things aren't perfect, it's okay.
Right. And I think for me, I am coming more and more to embrace the idea that hearing about other people's experiences is the best way forward.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to say it's an obligation, although I think I kind of feel like that. In some sense, to me, as older women, it is in some ways an obligation to share what we've been through, to help others, because I would say that we grew up in a generation where a lot of stuff wasn't talked about.
Yeah.
And as we made our way through being a career woman, having our children, facing hurdles in our relationships, we had not heard from, at least in my experience, older women who were talking about that, who gave advice about it, who shared their experiences about it. And, it's very unlikely that women, 40 years ago didn't experience what we are, but they didn't as such talk about it. Or unless they talked about it with their friends. Maybe they talked about it with their friends, and that's
Just
why we
didn't
didn't
tell
hear.
anybody else.
But it's also, there's a lot of things you go through that I think we want to untaboo. We want to normalize the things we've been through, the struggles we've had. And one thing I'm thinking about a lot lately is just, I'm only coming to realize now how many of my friends really, like, for example, struggled after they had children, and how that topic was never talked about, right? How difficult some of these transitions were. How many people had serious periods in their marriage when they'll look back and go, we were on the edge there, and it easily could have gone either way. don't think when we were younger we shared that. And I think now we're ready, if those situations come, to look to our friends for support and say to them, hey, I'm drowning over here.
Yeah.
What's going on? Or are you going through this? So
yeah, exactly.
Yes.
And it's important to reach out, and that's why we wanted to start this, is to develop this forum where we're here for each other, we're here for our friends, and quite frankly, we're here for you, and we'd love to get some feedback from you. So just like a beautiful cup of coffee, or maybe after 5 o'clock, a lovely cocktail or glass of wine, we're here to provide that hug and provide that open dialogue going forward, and we really look forward to you joining us. And Pam, send it off for us.
Absolutely. So we will see you again in our next episode. Not quite sure what topic's going to come up next, but that's the way it works. We're trying to be organic. We're trying to talk about the things that we're actually feeling in our lives, talking to our friends about. So that's what will come up next. But thank you for joining us, and until next time,
Cheers.
Women with Good Chat.
Chat soon.